Hello, everyone. Welcome to Andre and Soli. This is Peace, Love, and Chocolate, our podcast where we talk about bringing back the family and bringing back traditional values. Today, we're going to be talking about
Deal breakers, and more specifically, things that aren't deal breakers. We just did a podcast. We did 2 podcasts, types of women to avoid, types of men to avoid. Those were filled with some pretty deep and a very extensive list of things you should avoid, things that should be deal breakers, red flags for you. But today we're going to talk about things that aren't deal breakers, but that people make into deal breakers. Of course, some of these still may be deal breakers for you, but this is just in a general, because sometimes people are too nitpicky. Yeah. And they're trying to get married or trying to get in a relationship, whatever. But then they nitpick all these things that doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So a couple things that are deal breakers, just as a general overview, faith, family values, general life direction and life goals. Do you want to elaborate on any of those?
Yeah. I think we should. So things that should be deal breakers that we talked about in the earlier videos.
Go listen to them.
Yeah, definitely go listen to the types of men to avoid and types of women to avoid. For both, either or, you should really listen to both. Well, you should really listen to both. So the first thing is faith. If you have different beliefs regarding faith and religion, especially if you have strong beliefs, if you're a Christian, if you have the Christian faith, the other person doesn't, there's really no reason why you should be dating them. Because if you do want to help them in their career, or not in career, sorry. If you do want to help them in their faith, you want to guide them in that way, you don't need to be dating them. There's no reason why you have to date them in order to help them come to Christ or whatever. Mm-hmm. So if you want to lead that person, then you just, you give them a Bible. And that's all you need to do, really. It's not your responsibility. You preach the gospel, and then that's it. That doesn't mean you have to date them.
No flirting to converting.
Yeah, and then no missionary dating. The other one we talked about is family values. If one person says, you know what, I definitely don't want any children. I know I'm set on this, and the other person's like, no, I want a family. I definitely want a family. Mm-hmm. Then there's no reason why you should be dating at least to in a point where it's a romantic relationship. Mm-hmm. It's okay. You can be friends with whoever, and continue being friends and continue being that way. But if you're dating someone, if your values in that don't align, then it's not.
Yeah, or if it's important to you that they have a good relationship with their family or different things like that.
Mm-hmm. The other one is general lifestyle. General lifestyle views. So if one person is like, you know what, I want to live in a very lavish lifestyle, and the other person is the other extreme, those typically don't work. I want to live
in a tiny home with one pair of clothing.
Yeah, those typically don't work. It can work when it's vague and the other person's kind of more malleable in their ways. Mm-hmm. It's I'm not really sure. I just kind of want to be happy, Soli's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Sully's a little bit more she
I have an idea of what I would love, but I'm also not opposed to
she's open
changing
to
it and going with the flow.
And so am I, but at the same time, we both know just things that we enjoy, we it kind of goes back to the family values, but just in general, you see that you can both go in the same direction. I see a lot of times that a lot of guys are like, oh no, I don't really want to. For example, I know a guy, I know several people that they wanted to be either missionaries out and go to Africa and live in Africa, for the rest of their lives, and then just live a low lifestyle and just help the indigenous people or help the African people and help the villages. And then their girlfriend or fiance or whatever, they're like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I definitely don't see myself living that, right?
You
So
should just part ways.
there's no reason why you should really be
Yeah.
dating someone like that when your lifestyle views just don't match up. When it comes, I told Soli, I'm not the person that wants to go and live.
Yeah,
in these
I was
places.
gonna say that. I was literally gonna say, like, if I was like, I want to be a missionary, like, at least for a year at some point in my life, like, at some point soon, maybe before I have kids or whatever, we probably wouldn't have gotten married because
I'd have been like,
Andre
"This is-"
does not want that.
Yeah,
He already grew up
a missionary,
a missionary kid.
Yeah, I told Soli from the start, I'm like, if you just don't expect, if you marry me, if we get married, don't expect for us to live like
Missions trips.
yeah, and like go on, and go and live in these different places and villages and stuff. I don't want that for my life, and that's fine, right? So the
You
next
heathen.
one, the other one, and this is the last one I wrote down, is just the general direction of the life course that you're going. If one person, for example, I'll give you an example. If I say that I want to be living a life, a very frugal life, I'm like, you know what? I want to spend everything in cash, and we're not going to go out to eat ever. We're not going to go out to the movies ever. We're not going to spend money. All we're going to do is like work extra side hustles and save up every single penny. And we're just going to live that lifestyle, right? And then Soli was over here like, I want to go out to eat 2 or 3 times a week, and I want to go to the movies every time, and I want to go and get smoothies, and I want to go and buy like myself some clothes once a month. Then if she was that
That's
lifestyle,
literally like our lifestyle.
yeah, I just said basically our lifestyle. If we would not match up in that, and it's okay like to match up. I can be like, oh, frugal, and she can be like, oh no, this way, and then we agree on something, or I say, you know what, I feel like God is leading us this way, and she will follow that way, But if you just like set in your ways in that way, it's not gonna work out. Okay, I don't want to talk too much about this.
The most important
but-
thing is people that are set in their ways that are, not malleable, like you said. So that's just a general overview, but go listen to our other podcast episodes, types of women to avoid, types of men to avoid, for even more in-depth and more examples of who you should avoid. Now, these things are not deal breakers. The next things we're
Yeah.
going to go through, I just know so many people that want to be in relationships, and then you see them like, or hear them talk about like, I went on a date with this person and it turned out terrible for this reason or that reason, or this man I thought was attractive at first, and then like the reasons they give are just like kind of stupid. And it's like, if you like continue,
Soli does not hold back in this podcast.
it's like if you gave him another chance, you would see. So the first one we have, for example, is personal style.
Yeah. So again, but just before we go into it, these are things that are not deal breakers.
Yeah.
So these are things that you should consider. You should always consider. So it's not like you shouldn't consider these things. But these are not just because of this one thing. It's a good thing to break up over. Which in the other podcast we did, we were talking about if they do this one thing, then if they are this way, then you should pretty much like break up with them, right?
Yeah,
These
even if
are
it's just one area.
these are like things that you should not break up with them just because of this one thing.
Yeah, just because of this. It might be a turnoff, maybe, but in general, you can get over these things. So the first one that we have is personal style. If I had gone off this, I probably would have not dated Andre, just because, I don't know, in my mind I was like, had like a little more of like the hipster, like skinny jeans type style, whatever.
Beta.
Oh my word. But like his personal style was just not like what I thought I was attracted to. But apparently
It was just my personal body.
Oh my word. I mean, but there's a difference, like personal style. If he shows his underwear and wears his pants like halfway down his buttocks and things like that, that is definitely,
Well, it's a
in
bad
my
thing.
opinion, I would say no.
This is one thing that's like, it's a taste thing, right? and therefore it shouldn't be a deal breaker, because there might be a girl out there who just like happens to see that and she's like, let me get some of those draws. But what we're saying is
your underwears.
What we're saying is that when it's like a personal style thing, that shouldn't be. You shouldn't break up with someone just because of that, right? If it's a accumulation of a bunch of things,
or
and
like
this
a
is,
modesty thing,
yeah,
like
a modesty
against your
thing.
convictions of what you
Yes,
think is
exactly.
appropriate. But
Yes.
just like, if your style is not t-shirts with buttons, or what is this, a pocket? Andre's wearing a
I don't know
gray
why she's
t-shirt
touching my nipple right now.
with pockets, and you're like, no, I like when guys wear like button downs only, like. And so a guy that doesn't have that same style comes up to you, don't, like, give him a chance if that is your main thing.
Yeah, it's basically, this is what we're saying. It's give the other person a chance.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a chance if they have, I know some girls that they like guys that are a little more ghetto, let's say. Like, a little bit more street and urban. Mm-hmm. And then they see a guy that isn't that way. It's okay to have your taste, and it's okay to say, you know what, that's not my guy. Like, I'm not attracted to him. But what we're saying is,
we have an episode about this.
Don't just count him out just because of that. Just because of that, just like give him a chance, get to know it. Maybe you line up in every single other area, and so this is basically what we're saying is don't count people out just based off of these things, because there are more important
their
things.
Their clothing or their hair or something. Yeah. Working a lot. This one I think is very interesting because you hear girls complain about men. This is kind of more for men, I think. Well, yeah. Because generally, I think...
Like this attribute?
Yeah, this attribute, I think, is in men more for them to work. And people are scared of men being workaholics. And I think men can be addicted to their work to the point where they neglect their loved ones or neglect doing anything outside of that. But it's also okay if a man really, really wants to work hard so that he can provide a specific life for himself and for others. But I've seen a lot of people that get turned off by this and freaked out by that. But that shouldn't be a turn off. Yeah, it shouldn't be something that makes you say, nope.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, that could be, Andre works a lot and he works hard. But he's not a workaholic.
Yeah, I think, and this is one... I think this is more geared towards girls that are dealing with guys that like to work a lot. Mm-hmm. The alternative is a guy that doesn't enjoy or doesn't like to work at all. I think it's probably a good thing to, like, don't count him out just because he works a lot, more than you want him to.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's a good thing. And I think that's how men are supposed to be. On the flip side, if you're a guy and you find yourself with a girl who likes to work a lot, it's harder to find, but as long as you like to work too and you enjoy the individuality of that, it's a whole different ballgame when it's like kids involved though. Mm-hmm. Like when it's kids and stuff, we're not really talking about that. This is like a dating relationship. I have seen many relationships where the girl works a lot. They're not married yet or have kids yet, and the girl works a lot and the guy works a lot, and they see each other and they're doing great. I think that's fine because if the guy's working a lot, what's the girl supposed to do if she doesn't have kids, right? They don't have kids. What's she supposed to do if he's out working and they can't really spend that much time together? So it's not a bad thing per se. When you're married and you have children, it's a different story. But don't count someone out just because they work a lot. Even in the past, it's been pretty much always a good thing to work a lot. Mm-hmm. And now we flipped it to it's like, no, it's a bad thing. It's like workaholic
and selfish.
Or right, and it's like, no, you're supposed to be, this is what humans were meant to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The next one is a different taste in music, videos, entertainment.
Oh, we could talk about this one.
I think, okay, we obviously intersect in some of these areas. In music, we intersect a little bit. I think actually probably maybe a lot more now, especially that he's introduced me to a lot of music.
Yeah, and we found a lot of common areas.
He knows what I like, so he'll play. I realize I don't really listen to music. I just listen to whatever you play.
But, whatever's going on in the environment.
So, in videos, we also our common ground video is like politics and a Netflix show or something that we watch together. But other than that, like, I don't know. Sometimes Andre just watches so that I'm like, why?
This is definitely something like that's big, because it's okay if you like things that the other person doesn't like. That's fine. You have to find common areas if you want to enjoy these things together. But you don't have to like everything the other person likes. Soli knows that I like some things, and I even tell her sometimes, like, she'll see me laughing or like be really entertained by something. She's like, "What is that? What are you watching?" And I'm like, "You probably wouldn't enjoy it, And she's like, "But what is it?" And then she really wants to know, and so I tell her, and she's like, like, she's kind of like, "You're right. I didn't want it. Like, I didn't really enjoy that, because maybe it has a lot of like cuss words, or maybe." Just the things that that they're talking about don't interest her many times. Like, I'm interested in finance a lot more than Soli is, and so I'll tell her a lot. Like, I'll watch videos about finance and business. Soli is a little bit more into now, actually a lot more into nowadays. But I definitely introduced her to that too, and But don't discount someone out just because, let's say you're a total, this is a really, simple example, but let's say you're a total Harry Potter fan or something, and the other person's like, I don't really like Harry Potter.
I like Harry Potter. I would watch it with Andre, but Andre doesn't like it.
I would probably watch it today, but it's just not
today?
No. See, it's not my first pick. But then, you know what I mean? And Soli does enjoy watching some things with me that I enjoy watching a lot more of. So I enjoy watching like more gruesome stuff, or action-filled, psychological thrillers. And Soli's kind of like freaked out by everything, and so she watches the whole thing like this,
with my hands over my eyes.
And so it's just one of those things. I think this should be like an adult thing that you realize. Oh, if my favorite band is Five Direction, that's fine.
Five Direction.
Oh, sorry, it was One Direction. I thought there was 5 guys in there. If my favorite band is Five Direction, 10 Direction, heck, 20 Direction. If my favorite band is One Direction, and the other person doesn't like One Direction at all.
Hates boy bands.
Yeah, that's okay.
So
it doesn't matter.
I used if they were obsessed with One Direction and like obsessed with them. Maybe I would say.
Well, think about it. But I used to listen to a lot of Bruno Mars, and once Soli and I got married, she used to listen to a lot of it too, but she didn't enjoy it because the lyrics are kind of nasty, and now I don't listen to him as often because of that same reason. But it's just interesting, because if it would have been because of that, that's such a silly thing to get over. Find things in common, find things you both like, and then you grow together.
Yeah, and then, the other person, you're not going to be together 24/7. So if there's something that you like that, the other person doesn't like, then when you're not together, you can just, listen to or watch whatever. The other thing, I have to say this, if you're a girl listening and you're anything like me, just remember that guys like more like crude things. Like a lot of times they have a more crude sense of humor, and you just gotta
just go with it.
What do we have next? Keeps you waiting. Do you know what I meant by
waiting. That? No, not really.
Just somebody who maybe like doesn't respond to texts right away, or is a couple minutes late to pick you up, things like that.
Yeah, that's true. That a lot of let's say a lot of girls, when a guy comes in late to pick them up, or like he'll little things like that, they're like, oh, he doesn't like care about me. Like I'm gonna be I have to love myself first, and if a guy is not gonna love me in that way, then I don't want him.
If he
That
doesn't
type of
text
thing.
me back in like 10 minutes after I first text him,
Yeah, those things
he
are
must
silly.
be responding to
This,
another girl
I mean,
first.
this really, this seems like it's just a common sense thing, but I guess many people don't really realize how common sense it should be, and they miss out on relationships sometimes because they'll break up because of things like these, especially when they're first getting to know each other. A lot of people won't go on dates because he looked at me the wrong way. He was wearing this, he was wearing that. He said this one thing, and I thought, wow, he's like I remember talking to this one girl.
This is a
and
good point that
he
I
told
didn't
me,
write down.
yeah, she told me that this guy had told her like something like I went to a festival one time or something like that. Something like that, and she was like turned off by it, and so she was like, I was just turned off by it, like I just didn't like it, and so she didn't want to go on a second date with him. I'm like, okay, like that's not really we're not saying you have to give them a chance. We're just telling you to consider giving the person a chance.
Because these aren't life or death, so to speak.
At the same time, though, I think
These aren't going to ruin a relationship if you go forward.
Yes. I think
Necessarily.
women are more perceptive about who they want than men. Men will pretty much take anything. Women are a lot more, they can perceive certain, like, oh, this is the guy I want. This is the kind of guy I want. And so therefore, this is making me think that we should do an episode for guys on how to get the girl you want. Because I think girls are typically more likely to get the guy they want. Because, guys will go for anything, really, most of the guys. But girls typically have unrealistic higher standards than guys do. Like he's got to be 6'5", and he's got to make like $150,000 a year, and he's got to be like this and that, in order for them to get married. But anyways, that was a little bit of a rant.
Yeah. The next one I have is cheap, which is kind of funny because he kind of talked about this a little earlier. But basically, if you go on a date and the guy is paying, and I don't know, this might be a turnoff for you, but it also might not be. But he's like, okay, I'm paying. Please don't spend all my money, or like let's
true.
get a plate, and some sides, and share it. Things like that. Apparently, a lot of girls are gold diggers.
It's frugality. Not
yeah. Yeah, but from what I have observed, apparently a lot of girls like taking advantage of guys' pockets.
Yeah. They don't care if they go completely empty. I mean, because it's not them paying. So.
Yeah. But yeah, if he's cheap, what is another
Frugal.
example, or frugal? but the people would perceive it and say, oh, he's cheap. Like don't date.
So one example, when Sully and I first went on our date, I remember one thing. I remember when we went to a museum, and the museum, if you went to the museum and you gave them your student ID, then you got a discount. I can't remember what the discount was, but it was like a whatever discount, and I knew the whole day was going to be really expensive for me, especially back then.
A lot of money.
I wasn't making much money, and I remember like I was just thinking like this day is going to be real expensive, and I remember going to the museum and like not caring because it was our first date, right? Sometimes for our first date, it's okay to like spend a little more than usual, but also to let the girl know that this is not once in a lifetime, but this is like a rare occasion, because this is a special occasion, and so this is not going to happen regularly. This is one thing that like I don't usually do this, and I don't think we're gonna usually do this, but since this is a special occasion, like we're gonna go out.
He takes me on lots of expensive dates.
But the thing is, you want to make sure that you establish that, because a girl will then expect it. And I think many times, like when you're not paying, and I realized this as I got older, when you're not paying for things, you can't really gauge how much money you spend. And so when you're not the one really footing the bill, you're just like, why doesn't he just spend it? Like, he's got the money, like he works, why doesn't he just spend it, right? But then when you're on the other side, you're kind of like,
trying to spend it on you, girl.
you're kind of like, I have bills to pay for, I have things to pay, I have to save money, I have to invest for my future, right, in my family. So it's not just like, oh, just let him spend the money. And so what I was gonna say is, we went to this one time in the student ID, and I didn't care when the lady's like, do you have a student ID? I was like, heck yes, I do. 'Cause it was like a $50 like entrance, and I was like, yes, I do have it. And I don't know if Soli, like, I remember Soli kind of being a little bit like, what the, like a little bit weirded out that I didn't care that I put my student ID out. But I'm like, no, like, if she understands that I'm spending like a lot of money on this day, because we went to a museum, we went to the movies, we went to dinner.
You shouldn't have asked me out on a date if you didn't want to spend money.
Oh,
Just
shoot.
kidding.
See what I mean? There's this exact same attitude that we're talking about. So I thought, if she knows that I'm spending this much money on her, the good part on her would be to say, okay, he's spending so much money on me. It would be a good thing for me to want and realize that, like, I want to save his money, right? Like, I want to be courteous and try to save his money, and for him to not have to spend as much money, if we could figure out a way to pay less parking and all that stuff. So anyways, when you encounter someone that is that way, that they want to be a little more like like we watched this guy Graham Stephan on YouTube, and the guy doesn't even want to pay like he's a millionaire. And there's a lighting that is called like a softbox. He doesn't even want to pay for one. He just puts a towel over his light.
Which they're not even that expensive, right?
No, they're not. I think it would cost like $20 or something. But he's like, oh, a towel will do just fine.
Towel over a lamp.
And so someone like him, right? But at the same time, if you understand someone like him, like, there is a person for someone like him, right? And if you're that type of person that is okay with that, it's okay to give them a chance. Now, if we're going back to the lifestyle things, if your lifestyles are completely different, you are just spend all the way, the other person is frugal all the way, you have to think about that. But if you guys are somewhere in the middle and you can see how you can compromise, it's a good thing to, speaking of, we have to learn how to compromise and not spend that much money. Just kidding.
Speaking of compromise, we have an episode on compromise.
Yeah,
you should go listen to it.
Go listen to it and watch it.
So the next one is kind of funny. I was trying to find more examples, and I found this one on a website, and it says bad kisser. If they're a bad kisser, just forget it. Just forget the whole stinking thing.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm gonna forget. No, just kidding.
Too late, Andre. Too late. No. When Andre and I started dating, I'd only kissed a couple people, and it was like...
What?
No, not a couple people.
Whoa. The truth comes out. In the wedding video, she's like, my first ever kiss in the podcast, I had only kissed a couple people.
So for this play that I was in, I had to kiss the guy. I played his wife. It was The Crucible. I played his wife, and he was about to go die, so I had to kiss him. And I'm sure that was the most, like, unconvincing kiss in the whole world. Like, your husband's about to go die, you're his pregnant wife. And then it was probably the worst part of my whole high school career, having to kiss this kid. And it was like, anyways, we're not going to talk about that anymore because it's over. And I'm traumatized. Just kidding. But, so needless to say, I did not have a lot of kissing experience. And... Andre had every right to drop me right after our first kiss, but...
Well, actually, our first kiss was just a peck.
Yeah.
So
after our first, second...
Or probably second. No, okay,
no.
let's not get into
anyways.
details. But the point is that that's such a thing. Like, if you're planning to spend the rest of your life, it goes back to the myth of you have to test drive the car.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say that.
If you are planning to spend the rest of your life with someone, which you should be when you start out dating, maybe not planning to, but at least expecting to at some point, right? With those intentions, then it doesn't matter. Like, you're gonna figure it out. You're gonna figure out how to become physically compatible, how to, what all it takes to be physically compatible is just like
a man and a woman
and being attracted to each other. You figure it out. You really do figure it out. And so after some time, you figure out like how you can be, little things here and there, and then you enjoy each other once you're married. But it's not a big deal at all.
No.
In fact, I recommend not even kissing or being physical at all until you're married, because things escalate real quickly.
This is definitely just a big one because there's so much emphasis on that physical side, and especially in the non-Christian sphere of things. It's really emphasized that you have to be physically compatible, and you literally do not have to. I mean, I think it's important to be physically attracted to the other person because it'd be kind of weird if you weren't. But you don't have to even hold hands the right way before you don't have to know how to hold hands. You don't.
Yeah, you figure all that out. There's no reason. You figure it
out. It's that this one to me is definitely not unless they're like super gross and like, I don't know, have really stank breath and you're like, I will never kiss that mouth.
If you have bad breath, just avoid the kiss. Like, go brush your teeth, go put some gum in, like, make sure you get anyways. The next one is fan of the opposing team. I'm gonna kind of just like jump through these two. So if you have like different sports teams and the other person doesn't like that,
those are super
yeah, it's just so silly, and so obviously like it doesn't matter. A different sense of humor. This is a big one because I think people have like, oh, we have the same sense of humor. Like, that's amazing. Okay. I know so many people. I'm not so many, but I know many good no, not even many. I know some good couples that have great marriages, and they don't really have the same sense of humor. Like, the guy will crack up at something, and the girl will be like, okay, and then vice versa. So it doesn't really matter. You have to enjoy time with each other, and you have to laugh, at certain things, but you don't have to have the exact same sense of humor. Our parents don't. So, like, Soli's parents don't. My parents don't.
Yeah.
They don't have the same sense of humor, When my dad cracks up, he cracks up at different things than my mom does. Same with Soli's parents. And that's okay. Soli will crack up with things with her siblings that I don't find funny, and I will crack up with things with my siblings that I find funny with them.
And
Soli's
what?
What? And so that's fine. But we do have fun together, and we do laugh together a lot. And so as long as that happens, you don't have to have the exact same sense of humor, or even like the same sense of humor.
Yeah, that is true. So don't write them off just because you didn't laugh at your jokes.
The next one is political. And so it doesn't mean like if you don't have different political beliefs. What does it mean?
Oh, basically this one website said if they talk about politics on the first date, which that might be a turn off for some people, but it might not be. And I think it's actually good to talk about, if you're like me, on our first date, after everything, we were sitting in the car.
So I was like, so what are your intentions?
I was like, so yeah.
I'm like, what the?
I'm trying to figure out what you want because I'm not trying to waste my time.
Soli literally asked me, so what are your intentions? I'm like, what? We just went on a first date. Isn't he no marriage?
Yeah, but it wouldn't be the end of the world like if they talked about politics on the first date. Yeah,
it does tell you a lot. So basically what it means is like if you differ from them in certain things, like that's fine. I know Soli and I differed on certain things. Politically not really. But so what I just want to make sure, it doesn't mean that if you have different political beliefs that's okay. That's not a deal breaker. I think it is a deal breaker if you do. But so what, can you explain that a little bit? Just a tiny bit?
Oh, it just means like if they get like talk politics or like show interest in,
if they show interest in politics, that shouldn't be a deal breaker.
Yeah, because what the website was saying was like, you really don't want a guy that will like talk about politics on the first day. I was like, why not?
But true, and the other way around too. If they are not that interested in politics, because there are a lot of people like that. The next one is ask you out through text. So if typically guys ask girls out, right? So if a guy asks you out and he is using text to do so, I think it's fine, because nowadays girls are probably more likely to say yes through text than they are in person. Because if you think about it, like, a girl gets really nervous, she doesn't know, she has to give you an answer on the spot, she has no idea what's going on. So it's not necessarily like ideal. I think the ideal thing is to ask her out on a date in person. That's like the real, like, manly thing to do. But nowadays everything is so technological and people chat with each other, and so a lot of things happen through text. So if that happens, it's just a date. Either it's not asking for a girlfriend. That's a different thing.
Wife.
Obviously, like, if you're proposing or asking, for it to be a girlfriend or anything like that, like, obviously a text is not. It's just like, basically what I think of as a date is just a time and place where we meet, where we can get to know each other.
Is that what all of our dates are that we go on now?
Yes. I just want to get to know each other. I want to get to know each other a little bit. or get to know you a little less. The next one is shyness or extroversion. So if you're dating this person, or if you're getting to know this person and they're really shy, or they're just really extroverted, obviously in the extremes it's something to consider, but again, it's not necessarily a deal breaker. That stuff can really go away. We know, I mean, everyone knows someone that is like really, really shy, extremely shy, and then people that are just way out there. So don't discount them out just because of that. If that's a part of
Plus,
some other things.
You know what they say, opposites attract.
That's true.
And then the next one that we have is diet. So diet as in like different food preferences.
Again, it goes back to lifestyle. If your lifestyle is completely different, then it is worth to consider. It is worth it to consider, like, okay, this is not going to work out. But if you have different things, like, one person might say, you know what, I'm a vegetarian, which I don't even agree with at all. Like, because I'm like a carnivore, and so if one person says, you know what, I'm a vegan, and the other person says I'm a carnivore.
If I had said I was vegan, then he probably would. His attraction
really
towards me would have gone down.
Yeah.
If he said he was vegetarian, I probably would have been okay with that. I probably would.
Yeah, but what we're talking about is, like, if you are, a pescatarian and the other person's a vegetarian, just talk about things. These things are changeable, malleable most of the time. If someone is set in their ways, like, I'm set on my ways when it comes to food sometimes. Like, I'm like, I don't see a day where I'm going to give up, like, meat. And so if someone like me, it is definitely worth it to consider if you are a vegan. But it could still work out. It could still work. I don't see that that's like a deal breaker or like a red flag in itself.
unless goes to like something deeply moral. You're like, I disagree with killing animals and eating them, eating their flesh.
The other thing is interests and hobbies. That's, like we said earlier, I am a lot more interested in like finance and like cryptocurrency, and Sully is not at all. I mean, not even a little bit.
I used to be interested in finances back when Dave Ramsey was in my life.
But that kind of stuff, it doesn't really matter. I'm a lot more into maybe playing music.
Soccer.
Oh, yeah.
He likes watching soccer.
Oh, I could watch soccer. Matter of fact, I'm thinking of a game that's just starting right now. So,
what am I into?
Sully is not really into that at all. Sully likes Instagram and like girly things and like homey things and children, babies. She loves babies. I love babies more now because of Sully.
But they're more of my hobby.
I love babies now more because of Sully, but really, yeah, it is more of a Sully's hobby. Sully will be like, baby. I'll be like, for like a second. And then Sully will be like, for like 10 seconds. And she'll keep telling me about it. Yeah. So yeah, it's just stuff like that. It's okay to have different, interests and different things that you enjoy doing, and you don't have to do everything together. Obviously, you don't have to be into all the same things. As long as you find a few things that you enjoy doing together, like us, this podcast. I mean, we really enjoy
It's not
doing a
that
lot
hard
of
when
things
you're
together.
married.
We enjoy a lot of things together. We really do. But you just have to find the ones that you do, and then you enjoy those, and then the rest, it's up to you to figure out how you can make it work.
Yeah. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes.
I think that's the
Basically,
saying.
yeah. I think so too.
We want you to have great relationships and to love your relationships and to love being in a relationship that is God ordained and just pure and fun and good. And so, you could find somebody that helps you to have a relationship that might not have the same style as you, might have different dietal preferences.
Dietary.
And that's diet. But that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You don't gotta
just make sure you listen
go
to
on
our
Facebook and say, this guy done asked me out over text. What the?
Yeah. Make sure you go and listen to our men to avoid, types of men to avoid, and types of women to avoid. Also listen to any other podcast we have.
We have one called Love is Blind.
Yeah.
That talks about physical appearances and how important they are.
And also how to find the one. We have one where it's like just how to find the one.
Yes.
So we have many episodes. We're up to 10 now. This is our 11th. So yeah, good job.
We hope you enjoy our podcast. We have a lot of fun doing this.
Yes.
So make sure to subscribe
Yes.
and hit the notification bell so you know every time we upload a new podcast. And if you're listening on Anchor or Spotify, make sure you subscribe on Spotify, right?
Yes.
So
And
that,
share it on
yeah.
share it wherever you go.
Yeah, share
It
it
is
with
really,
some people.
really helpful for everyone to listen to this. And of course, we want everyone to listen to it so we can get the message out there. Thank you so much for watching. We are Andre and Soli with Peace, Love, and Chocolate, bringing back the family and traditional values. And we will see you next time.